The rain began just as Emma Walsh stepped off the bus, a cold November drizzle matching the numbness she had carried for the past 3 weeks. She stood on the sidewalk outside her apartment building, her worn suitcase beside her, an oversized beige sweater wrapped around her thin frame. At 26, she felt far older, hollowed out, as if the diagnosis she had received had aged her decades in only a few days. Infertile. The word echoed in her mind like a curse. The endometriosis had been worse than anyone expected. The doctor had explained gently that the damage was extensive. Natural conception would be nearly impossible. There were options, treatments, surrogacy, adoption, but all of them required money. She didn't have a partner willing to walk that difficult road with her. She had thought she did. 3 days after her diagnosis, Emma's boyfriend of 4 years, Marcus, had sat her down in their apartment, his apartment, as she was reminded when he asked her to leave, and told her that this changed things. He wanted biological children, he said, avoiding her eyes. He had always imagined starting a family in the usual way. This wasn't what he had signed up for. She moved out that same night and had been staying with her friend Rachel for the past few weeks while trying to figure out what came next. But Rachel's place was small, and her roommate complained about having an extra person around. Emma knew she couldn't impose forever. She needed her own space, needed to figure out how to rebuild a life that had fallen apart so completely. She picked up her suitcase and headed inside, climbing the 3 flights to her new studio apartment. It was small and drafty, but it was hers. She could afford it on her salary as a graphic designer at a small marketing firm, just barely, but enough. As she unpacked her few belongings, her phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. "How's the new place? Also, don't be mad, but I gave your number to someone." This is probably not what you expected from a first coffee date. "It's okay," Emma assured him. "I appreciate your honesty." They talked for another hour, the conversation flowing far more easily than Emma expected. Julian was thoughtful, self-deprecating, with a quiet sense of humor that made her smile in spite of herself. He asked about her work, showed genuine interest in her designs, and made her feel heard in a way she hadn't felt in a long time. As they prepared to leave, Julian hesitated. "I know this might be asking a lot for a first meeting, but would you be interested in getting dinner next weekend? There's an Italian place the kids love. They're well behaved, I promise. But I understand if meeting them is too much too soon." Emma felt panic rise. Meeting his children? That seemed far too fast. But when she saw the hopeful look in Julian's eyes, the vulnerability there, she found herself agreeing once again. "Great," he said, the relief clear in his voice. "Saturday at 6. I'll text you the address." As Emma walked home, her thoughts spun wildly. What was she doing? She couldn't pursue this, couldn't let it go any further. Julian had 4 children and clearly wanted a partner who embraced family life. He deserved to know the truth about her situation. She should tell him now, before anyone got hurt. But each time she picked up her phone to text him, the words refused to come. How did you reveal something so intimate, so painful, to someone you barely knew? She kept delaying, telling herself she would bring it up at dinner. Saturday came too quickly. Emma changed outfits 3 times before settling on a simple dress and cardigan. She took a cab to the restaurant, her hands trembling slightly as she paid the driver. The Italian restaurant was warm and lively, families crowded around tables, the air filled with the smell of garlic and fresh bread. Julian was waiting outside, but this time he wasn't alone. Looking polished but not overly formal. He was scrolling through his phone with a faint frown of concentration. Emma took a deep breath and stepped inside. "Julian." He looked up, and a smile spread across his face, warm and genuine. "Emma, it's nice to meet you." He stood to shake her hand, the gesture formal yet kind. "Can I get you something? Coffee? Tea?" They ordered their drinks and settled into a corner table. For the first few minutes, the conversation stayed in the usual getting-to-know-you territory. Julian owned a tech company that developed educational software. He had built it from the ground up over the past decade. And although he downplayed his success, Emma gathered from the gaps and hints that he had done very well for himself. "Rachel mentioned you're a single dad?" Emma asked as she sipped her coffee. Julian's expression softened. "I am. I actually have 4 children. Sophia is 12, James is 9, Lily is 6, and Michael just turned 4. 4. Emma repeated, trying not to show her surprise. "That's wonderful. That must keep you busy." "That's an understatement," Julian said with a laugh. "It's chaos most days. Beautiful chaos, but chaos all the same." "Their mother?" Emma asked carefully, then instantly regretted it. "I'm sorry, that's too personal. You don't have to answer." "It's okay. It's a fair question." Julian wrapped his hands around his cup. "She died 2 years ago. A car accident, very sudden. We had been divorced for about a year at that point, but we were co-parenting well. The kids were with me that weekend, which I'm grateful for in a way. I can't imagine if they had been in the car with her." "I'm so sorry," Emma said, her own problems suddenly seeming smaller. "That must have been devastating for all of you." "It was. It still is, some days. The kids miss her terribly. Sophia especially. She's at an age where she really needs a mother figure. And I'm doing my best, but..." He stopped, shaking his head. "I'm sorry." 4 children stood with him, dressed neatly but carrying that slightly rumpled look that came from constant activity. The oldest, Sophia, had long brown hair and her father's serious eyes. 9-year-old James wore glasses and was explaining something to his father with animated hand gestures. Little Lily held a stuffed bear, her blonde hair in pigtails, and Michael, the youngest, held onto Julian's hand while staring at Emma with open curiosity. "Everyone, this is Emma," Julian said warmly. "Emma, this is Sophia, James, Lily, and Michael." "Hi," Emma managed, overwhelmed by the reality of 4 pairs of eyes studying her. "Are you Dad's girlfriend?" Michael asked immediately, and Julian's face flushed. "Michael, we talked about this. Emma is Dad's friend. We're having dinner together." "But you said you were going on a date," James pointed out logically. "Okay, inside, everyone now," Julian said, gently herding them toward the door. He mouthed "I'm sorry" to Emma, who couldn't help but laugh despite her nerves. Dinner was a revelation. The children were charming in their own ways, Sophia quiet but observant, James full of facts about space and dinosaurs, Lily shy but gradually warming up, and Michael a non-stop chatterbox. They clearly adored their father, and he managed them with a patience and warmth that made Emma's chest tighten. "Miss Emma," Lily said halfway through the meal, tugging at her sleeve. "Do you like to draw? Daddy said you're an artist." "I'm a graphic designer," Emma explained. "But yes, I love to draw." "Do you like art?" Lily nodded eagerly. "I draw pictures of Mommy so I don't forget what she looks like." The table went silent. Julian's expression tightened with pain. Before he could speak, Emma reached over and took Lily's small hand. "That's beautiful," she said softly. "I think that's one of the best reasons to make art, to remember the people we love." Lily smiled, and Emma noticed Julian watching her with an expression she couldn't decipher. "His name is Julian, friend of my boss. Really nice guy, single dad. I told him you might want to go out. Hope that's okay." Emma stared at the message, emotions swirling. Dating was the last thing she wanted. How could she? What was she supposed to tell someone new? "Hi, nice to meet you, by the way, I can't have children." It felt like something that should be mentioned early, yet far too heavy for a first date. She typed back. "I appreciate it, but I'm really not ready." Please tell him I'm not interested. Before she could send it, her phone rang, an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Hello. Hi, is this Emma? The voice was deep, warm, slightly uncertain. This is Julian Matthews. I hope you don't mind that Rachel gave me your number. She thought we might enjoy meeting. Emma closed her eyes, silently cursing Rachel's enthusiasm. Listen, Julian, I appreciate the call, but I'm really not in a place to date right now. I'm sorry she put you in this position. I understand, he said, sounding sincere. I wasn't sure about this either, to be honest. Dating feels complicated at this stage of my life. But Rachel was persistent, and she spoke very highly of you. Would you consider meeting for coffee? No pressure, just two people talking. If nothing else, we can both tell Rachel we tried. Something about his honesty disarmed her. She heard herself agreeing before she fully thought it through. They arranged to meet the following Saturday at a cafe downtown. As the week went on, Emma tried not to think about it. She buried herself in work, took extra freelance projects, anything to stay busy. But Saturday arrived anyway, and she found herself standing outside the cafe 15 minutes early, her heart pounding with anxiety. Julian was already inside. She could see him through the window. He was handsome in a subtle way, likely in his mid-30s, with dark hair and a neatly trimmed beard. He wore a navy suit without a tie, the jacket unbuttoned. After dinner, as Julian walked her to her car, she had driven tonight, he caught her hand. Thank you, he said quietly. For what you said to Lily, and for being patient with all of them. I know this probably wasn't the romantic dinner you might have expected. Emma looked at this man who was trying so hard, who had been given such a difficult situation and handled it with so much grace. She knew she needed to tell him the truth. She couldn't let this go any further without being honest. Julian, I need to tell you something. His expression shifted, alert and concerned. Okay. I can't have children. The words rushed out. I found out a few weeks ago. Endometriosis, severe damage. It's why my last relationship ended. I should have told you sooner, before you introduced me to your kids, but I didn't know how. I'm sorry. Julian was quiet for a long moment, his face unreadable. Emma braced herself for rejection, for the gentle explanation that this wasn't going to work. Instead, he said, is that why you seemed hesitant when Rachel first introduced us? Partly. I just didn't see the point in dating when this is something I have to disclose, and it's such a deal breaker for most people. Emma. Julian stepped closer, his voice soft. I have 4 children. 4. I'm not looking for someone to give me more children. I'm looking for someone who could love the ones I already have. Someone kind and patient and genuine, who sees them as people, not obligations. Emma felt tears sting her eyes. But that's a huge thing to ask of someone. I'm not asking anything yet, Julian said gently. I'm just saying that what you see as a flaw, I don't see as a factor at all. It doesn't change how I see you or whether I want to keep getting to know you. You should think about this, Emma insisted. Your kids are young. They've already lost their mother. You need to find someone who can be a mother figure for them. And I don't know if I can be that. I don't know how to be a parent. Neither did I until I became one, Julian said with a small smile. Nobody knows until they're doing it. But for what it's worth, I watched you with my kids tonight. Lily opened up to you more than she has with anyone since her mother died. James actually stopped talking about dinosaurs to ask you questions. Even Sophia, who's usually so guarded, smiled when you complimented her outfit. You were natural with them. They're great kids, Emma said, wiping her eyes. They are, and they deserve someone who sees them that way, not as burdens or complications. He paused. I'm not asking you to make any big decisions tonight. I'm just asking if you'd be willing to see where this goes. No pressure, no expectations, just see. Emma nodded, unable to speak past the lump in her throat. Over the following months, Emma was gradually woven into Julian's life. She came to dinner once a week, then twice. She helped Lily with an art project for school. She listened to James's endless facts about space exploration. She taught Sophia simple graphic design skills on the computer. She played trucks with Michael for hours, and slowly she fell in love. Not just with Julian, though she did love him, his kindness, his strength, his quiet humor. She fell in love with his children, too. Each one so different, so complete, so beautifully themselves. Julian's penthouse apartment became familiar. She learned where everything was in the kitchen, which drawer held the kids' favorite snacks, where Michael hid his toys when he was supposed to be cleaning up. She learned the evening routine, homework, dinner, baths, bedtime stories, a rhythm Julian had perfected over 2 years of single parenting. She learned that Sophia had nightmares about her mother and needed someone to sit with her until she fell asleep. That James got anxious about school and needed extra reassurance before tests. That Lily was afraid of the dark but too proud to admit it. That Michael cried sometimes for his mommy and didn't understand why she never came back. And she learned that she could help with all of it. That even without experience, even without having given birth to these children, she could offer comfort and support and love. 6 months after their first coffee date, Emma was at the apartment helping Julian make dinner while the kids worked on homework at the kitchen table. It was a scene of peaceful domestic life, so different from the lonely studio apartment she had lived in months earlier. Julian was chopping vegetables when he suddenly set the knife down and turned to her. "I love you," he said simply. "I should have told you sooner, but I wanted to be sure. I'm sure now. I love you, Emma. And my kids love you, too." "I love you too," Emma whispered, tears spilling. "All of you." He kissed her, tender, certain, while 4 children made loud, exaggerated gagging noises from the table. A year later, Emma stood in a courthouse wearing a simple white dress. Julian stood beside her in his navy suit. Sophia, James, Lily, and Michael stood with them, dressed in their best, matching boutonnieres and corsages pinned to their clothes. They weren't getting married. Not yet. Today was about something else, something Emma had never imagined for herself. The judge smiled at the children. "Do you all want Emma to officially become your parent?" "Yes." They chorused, Michael adding a firm, "forever and ever." The judge looked at Emma. "And do you agree to take on all the responsibilities and joys of being a parent to these 4 children?" "I do," Emma said, her voice steady despite her tears. "I absolutely do." The judge signed the documents, making everything official. Emma Walsh Matthews was now the legal adoptive mother of 4 children. She had never given birth to them, but loved them with the same intensity as if she had. Later, during the celebration dinner, Lily climbed into Emma's lap and whispered, "I'm glad you're our mom now. Not instead of our other mom, but also. We have 2 moms, and that makes us lucky." Emma held her close, overwhelmed by how life could change so completely. A year earlier, she had been told she couldn't have children, and that news had devastated her. She had believed it meant she would never be a mother, never have a family, never understand what it felt like to be someone's parent. But sitting there with Lily on her lap, James showing her his newest drawing, Michael insisting she watch him do a cartwheel, and Sophia helping Julian bring out the cake, Emma realized something deeply true. Family wasn't only about biology. Being a mother wasn't defined by giving birth. Love could create connections just as powerful, just as genuine, and just as permanent as any biological tie. Julian met her gaze from across the table and smiled. The same warm smile he had given her at the cafe a year ago. She had been so broken then, so certain that her diagnosis had stolen her future. Instead, it had brought her here, to 4 children who needed her as much as she needed them. To a man who had chosen her not in spite of her infertility, but because he saw that she had the heart to love children who were already in the world and longing for another parent. Marcus had rejected her for not being able to conceive, viewing it as a flaw that made her unworthy of his time. But Julian had chosen her, seeing past that one detail to the person she truly was, someone capable of love, patience, and commitment. "Thank you," she mouthed to Julian across the table. He shook his head, mouthing back, "Thank you." Because the truth was something neither of them had expected. Emma hadn't saved this family. They had saved her. They had shown her that the family you create can be even more precious than the one you once imagined. That sometimes one door closes so another better one can open, and that the ability to love has no limits when you finally find where you belong. Emma Walsh Matthews had once been told she would never be a mother, and biologically, that was true. But as she sat surrounded by her family, her husband, and the 4 children who called her mom and meant it with all their hearts, she understood how wrong the doctors, Marcus, and anyone else who had doubted her had been. She was a mother in every way that mattered. She was a mother, and nothing, not biology, not circumstances, not anyone's narrow idea of what a family should be, could ever take that truth away from her.